Hello and welcome back to our CAEL language series. Today we're going to continue working on our writing skills. We're focusing on the essay structure. So over the last couple of episodes, we've looked at gathering information from some source material and putting that information together in a usable way to write an essay structure. This will be a continuation then of last week's episode. So if you haven't already seen our previous episode, now would be a great time to pause this video, go back and watch it, and catch up with us when you're ready. So let's get started by reminding ourselves what an essay is all about. An essay does follow a very specific structure, and you're looking right now at the correct essay structure. This is a 4-paragraph essay. This was actually a submission on a past CAEL test, as a matter of fact. In part 4 on CAEL, you will be asked to write a long piece of writing, and that's what an essay is all about. So in this case, your first paragraph will always be your introduction in any essay you write. It's going to first identify or introduce the main topic that you're writing about, and then it's also going to answer the question on the test that you're trying to address. This would be called your thesis statement, where you provide that answer. And that statement in that first paragraph is going to let the reader know what the rest of the essay will be all about. Those 2 middle paragraphs you see right here, we refer to them as the body paragraphs of any essay. This is where all of these specific details will come from. Now, on the CAEL test, when you write the long piece of writing, you will be required to use information from both the long reading and the long listening passages. So again, that's where you're pulling details from in order to write the 2 middle paragraphs. The more specific your support is, the better your score will be on that area for the CAEL test itself. That last paragraph right at the bottom is your conclusion. And every essay you write must have a concluding paragraph. Its purpose is to summarize all the main points that you have discussed throughout the entire essay. And sometimes it's a place for you to offer up a next step or a reflection on what perhaps might happen next. We'll look at this structure again in more detail. Now, remember, an essay that you write might be longer than 4 paragraphs. You're always going to have that introduction and the conclusion, but you might have 3 or even 4 middle paragraphs. This one only has 2. And I think on the CAEL test, when you write this long piece of writing, you've only got 35 minutes to put together the entire essay. So I think most of us will probably have time to write the 2 middle paragraphs. If you're a very practiced and fast writer, you might have time for a third one. It's really up to you, but on the CAEL test itself, you must finish the essay in 35 minutes time. So again, last week we looked at how to gather information from the source material itself, and we spent that episode putting together this outline. We wanted to answer the question on the test first to clearly identify our thesis, and then again, we wanted to look at finding enough supporting details to offer up these 2 body paragraphs. Now, every single paragraph that we write about in the essay has to discuss only one main point. That's really, really important. And we'll come back to that point again very soon here as we begin writing. Again, our conclusion as well, we don't have to worry about too much in our outline process. But once we've written the first 3 paragraphs here, we'll be in a position then to summarize our main points. So just again, to remind ourselves, this is the exact same question we have been working on over the past several episodes now. So it should be somewhat familiar, but I will read it out loud just to jog our own memories today. It says, based on the reading passage, how have changes to sports equipment improved performance at the Olympic Games? So again, remember on the real CAEL test, you must use information from the reading and listening passages. For today's episode, in order to simplify things in a shorter amount of time, we are only going to focus on the reading passage. Okay, but again, the structure of the essay will be the same regardless of how many sources you have. But I did want to make that distinction. Again, on the real test, use reading and listening. But in this practice episode, we are just going to use the reading episode. It makes our job a little bit easier as we're learning how to write an essay in the first place. The other slight difference here that we're doing in practice is that this question that we're answering is a comprehension question. On the real CAEL test, you'll have a question that will ask you to select a position and support it that way. But again, in order to simplify things down and really hone our essay writing skills and understand how it should be structured, we're going to use this comprehension question instead. but the structures that we learned today will be applied to absolutely any essay you write, whether it's on the CAEL test or otherwise. So let's review, I guess, the outline then that we did create in the last episode. So you'll see the same question right at the top of the screen to keep us all on track. In that introductory paragraph space, we took the time in last week's episode to answer the question and give our very detailed thesis statement. So I'm going to read out loud right now this introductory paragraph statement, and this is what we're going to actually be writing today. We're going to put this idea into paragraph form. So the idea that we will be focusing on is technological advancements to sporting equipment have allowed Olympic athletes to achieve faster results and demonstrate more competitive performances. Okay, so again, we've answered that question up top. We are focusing strictly on innovative equipment and how it's improved athletic performance at the Olympics. But we worked hard last week to look at that reading passage and identify 2 specific ways in which athletic performance has improved. So we came up with the idea of achieving faster results. So again, this innovative equipment is allowing athletes to finish faster in their races now. And also they can demonstrate more competitive performances this way too. So innovative equipment pushes them to demonstrate a higher level performance is really what we're arguing. And again, in last week's episode, we looked at the structure. So we've got these 2 guiding ideas here in the introduction. In yellow, achieving faster results, that's our first focus. So that's going to be the content of the first body paragraph. All of the 3 examples here that we pulled right from the reading source last time, these all demonstrate how this advanced equipment is allowing athletes to finish faster at the Olympics. The second guiding idea in green in the introduction there is about the competitive performances. So because it's a brand new idea, it's completely different than faster times. We have to start a new paragraph. So demonstrating competitive performances then becomes the topic of this second body paragraph. And those 3 specific examples that you see there came again right out of that reading passage to show how this innovation can help athletes push their performance to the next level. Again, you'll notice the order is very well organized. So because we introduced faster times first in the introduction, we're going to address faster times first in the middle of the essay. Likewise, the competitive performances comes second in the introduction. So that's why it's the second body paragraph, and so on. Okay, so that's the basic structure. So what I'd like to do now again is we're going to take this outline and put it into paragraph form. So this is the next step, your draft process, if you will, on the CAEL test. So I'm going to take that introductory statement up top, and I'm going to place it right at the bottom of the writing space here. This is our thesis, and we're going to end our first paragraph, our introduction, with this exact idea. So it will lead into all the details to follow. But we have to write a couple of sentences first in order to introduce the topic. So looking back at our question, remember, the question is asking us first to focus on sports equipment, specifically the changes to, and also has to do with the Olympic Games. So before we even get talking about innovations to equipment, I think it would be wise just to introduce this notion of sports and Olympics. So let's say something like this. Competitive sports play a vital role across the globe and are characterized by a spirit of competition and fair play among athletes. So that one sentence, again, is introducing the reader to this idea of sports. I now want to say something about the Olympics. So I'll add a second sentence to do that. So we can say the Olympic Games are perhaps the most widely viewed sporting event by global audiences, particularly because the Games celebrate the top achievements by the world's strongest athletes. So that's a very fine introduction, again, encompassing both the idea of sports and the Olympics. It's an overview to the topic of the question itself. It doesn't answer the question, but it's setting up the background context so that the reader understands what's about to come next as we further our discussion. So I suppose the next thing we really need to do is get right down to the meat of the question, which is asking us to consider how these changes have improved the sports. We've already got our thesis statement at the bottom. So it's a matter of adding in a sentence to get from that top introduction to the thesis at the bottom. So let's say something about how equipment and the games have evolved. We are talking about the Olympics after all. And when we looked at the reading passage, it actually told us that the Olympics began about 2,500 years ago. So we can pull that detail now, and it makes for a very interesting statement to include in the introduction. We can say here that the winning attitudes of athletes competing in the games may be the same now as they were 2,500 years in the past, but the science and technology of sports have undergone dramatic changes. So there's that concept of change. And we're pretty much ready to connect right on to that thesis. Let's just add in one transition. If we say this, it all makes sense. So in fact, technological advancements to sporting equipment have allowed Olympic athletes to achieve faster results and demonstrate more competitive performances than ever before. So that's our introduction. Again, step by step, we looked at introducing the main topic, sports and the Olympics. We then looked at getting the idea across about how the Olympics have changed over the years. And then we specified that it's the changes to this equipment that are allowing athletes today to race faster and in a more competitive way with a higher skill set is really what we're saying. So looking back at our outline rather, we can say effectively that that introductory paragraph has been finished. I think we can say we're satisfied with it. Let's move on. Again, on the test, you don't have an hour just to write your introduction. You have to keep it quick. So keep an eye on your time. Make sure you've got your topic introduced, your thesis done, and get right into the middle paragraphs. So starting with body paragraph 1, this is the paragraph that talks all about the fast times. So let's throw those ideas from the outline at the top here to keep us all on track. So the very first thing we must do before we start citing these 3 examples is we have to introduce the main topic of this one paragraph. So remember how one paragraph discusses one main idea? So let's write a topic sentence that introduces how this advanced equipment allows athletes to race faster. That's really what we're saying here. So let's try something like this. Innovations in equipment design have allowed modern Olympic athletes to achieve faster results throughout competition. So that introduces the concept of faster times. Really well done there, I think. So let's maybe underline our topic just to keep us all on track. So absolutely everything we talk about in this paragraph has to connect back to the idea of fast times. If the example is not about going faster, it does not belong in this paragraph. All of your ideas have to be on topic, which is about speed. That's the focus. So we already have our 3 examples. Again, we pulled these out of the reading source last episode. Our first example, we learned that bikes now use carbon fiber technology, which makes these bikes really, really lightweight. They're under 4 pounds now. So you can imagine an athlete that's pedaling along on a lightweight bicycle, of course, is going to be able to travel faster. So this is the idea that we want to include. So let's say something about bikes or cyclists here. Maybe this would work. So cyclists, for example, notice our transition, for example, are crossing finish lines in record times, due in large part to new carbon fiber technology that is used to create lightweight bicycles. Since each bicycle now weighs under 4 pounds, it can be ridden faster than at any time in the past. So do you notice how we've cited first off the equipment? We identified the bike. We showed how it was advanced. It's using this carbon fiber technology, and we connected that back to our topic. So this advancement then lets the athletes go faster. So that example then has been completed successfully, I would say, and we're ready now to add in the second example. This one's all about arrows that also use carbon fiber technology. And we read in the reading passage that, again, it allows the arrows to leave the bow much faster now, I guess, than ever before. So we need to say something about arrows or archery. So this sentence might work. We have carbon fibers are also used to coat the modern glass and foam arrows used by archers. These materials increase the speed of each shot, which sometimes exceeds 240 kilometers per hour. Okay, so again, look at how we've connected the notion of speed. I didn't want to use the word faster again, because I've already used it twice now. So we said increase the speed, which means the same thing. And that example of 240 kilometers per hour, again, we pulled that right out of the reading source. So we're trying to be as specific as possible to really emphasize how fast these athletes can compete now due to the innovative equipment. All right, so I think that example is sufficiently accomplished. Let's move on to number 3. So this one spoke about the art, or the sport rather, of swimming. And it was all about how the pool is now equipped with these special grills that eliminate turbulence in the water. So if the water is calmer, the athletes then can swim more quickly through that water. They don't have the waves pushing at them to slow them down. So that's the idea here that we're trying to get in to this paragraph. So we'll start with introducing swimming. And we have here, swimming is another sport where athletes are setting new world records thanks to structural updates to the pools. Olympic swimming pools are now equipped with turbulence damping grills that eliminate the waves that are created by the kicking and arm motions of the athletes. Calmer waters easily produce faster race results. So again, we added that last little phrase there to summarize, or to connect, I guess, this notion of how the grills in the swimming pool also allow athletes to compete much faster now than ever before. So we have very strong coherence. Every single detail here you can see through the orange underlined details, they all speak about fast times, following the example of how the specific piece of equipment has been innovated or advanced in modern times. So we're pretty much done the paragraph. I think one more sentence at the end here to conclude or to summarize would be helpful in this regard. So let's try something like this. This is a complex sentence, so it adds also a bit of elevation to the academic nature of our writing. We might say, although training and proper nutrition play a large part in an athlete's results at the games, advancements in the equipment that the competitors use is certainly a contributing factor to the record-breaking speeds that are being set in modern times. So again, there's my connection, if you will, in the conclusion. There's my connection back to the top. Faster results and record-breaking speeds as well. Okay, I notice I've got a small grammar mistake there too. Advancements in the equipment should be that the competitors use are certainly contributing factors. So as you do the proofreading, as you're catching mistakes as you go, you would want to fix them as you go. All right, I'm not going to take the time to do that now, but I point it out because sometimes as we're writing, we don't even notice the mistakes we make, but there's one there. All right, let's move on to the next body paragraph. We're finished with body paragraph 1. I think body paragraph 2 is ready to be begun. This one's a completely different topic. It's all about having more competitive performances. So we're finished with speed. We don't want to talk about that again. Here's the new focus of this new paragraph. So again, just like we did earlier, we should start with the topic sentence. It's going to introduce what this whole paragraph's about. Something to do with competitive performances, showing higher level skill sets, and so on. One way you might transition into this new topic is somehow by referencing the idea that came earlier, in this case, the faster times, and then adding on this new idea that also shows improved performance at the games. So this is what I mean. Let's look at this example and see what you think. It says here that faster finish times are not the only benefit for Olympic athletes as a result of technological advancements. Innovative equipment also creates more challenging and competitive events, pushing athletes to demonstrate stronger abilities and higher level skills. Okay, so the orange underlined idea here is the focus, but adding that line above or earlier about fast times also contributing, this is what again connects this second main idea to the rest of the essay. It's strengthening the coherence. And that's one of the elements that the raters are looking for throughout the writing. So it's a little tip I share with you in case you want to experiment with that approach in your own writing. At any rate, we have our topic. So we're now ready to look at how we want to incorporate these examples into the writing. So the first one's all about dumbbell bars. We learned from the reading passage that they are now coated with this special rubber coating. And that allows the athletes then to grip that bar a lot more firmly so that they can lift heavier weights. So you can imagine then how that's improving their overall performance in that sport. So let's add that idea now. We'll start with our transition. For example, weightlifters now use dumbbell bars that are covered with rubber, allowing them to grip the bars more firmly and lift heavier weights. So again, I underlined that specific example in orange there to show how it connects back to our topic presented up above. Let's look at our second example, all about swimming pools again, but this time we're looking at how they have rubber bumpers that have been added at the end of the pool on both sides, so that when the swimmers get to the end and need to turn to make their lap, they have much more of a grip in which to push off. So again, that's allowing them to elevate their performance and their technique. So we might say modern swimming pools have a bumpy rubber coating on either end to give swimmers a better grip when turning at the end of a lap. Okay, so again, we need to highlight how their performance is being elevated, how it's more competitive now because of this equipment. Our final point is all about canoeing and kayaking. So the reading source told us that in modern days now at the Olympics, computer software is actually being used to build the course in the first place. So can you imagine these boats in the games with athletes in them traveling down, they're racing down this long waterway, trying to get to the finish line quickly. But now the course itself is having complicated turns, or maybe there are extra obstacles like rocks and so on added into the race course. So you can imagine then that these kayakers or canoers have to really fine tune their technique so that they can navigate around these turns and obstacles. So using this software to build that course is pushing the athletes to go harder, to demonstrate higher level skills so that they can get to the end of the course in record time. So this is a little bit more of a complex idea. So it takes maybe a few sentences then to get the idea down. So we have here computer technology and engineered mapping systems are making canoeing and kayaking more competitive as well. For instance, race organizers for these boating events used software to build the entire course. They place each turn and rock in a location that makes for the most challenging and competitive race. So I think because this third detail finishes with the idea of having a more challenging and competitive event, that matches very closely with what we started. So I think for this paragraph, I don't feel the need to add yet another concluding sentence that would say pretty much the same thing. The way we've written this seems to end this paragraph on a natural note. So let's just check off paragraph 2. And we're almost finished now. It's a matter of just writing our concluding paragraph. So we must summarize the main points first off in this concluding paragraph. So that means then we take away all of those specific examples. We've already addressed them in the essay proper, and we're not going to talk about specific examples again. In the conclusion, we cannot add any new ideas either. The conclusion is there strictly to remind the reader what we were talking about in this essay. Notably, that advancements to sporting equipment allow athletes to produce faster race results and demonstrate more competitive performances with higher skills. That's really what we want to say in a couple of sentences at the end. We can also add a next step here, I think. If we look at where, since the Olympics happen every 4 years anyway, we might want to make a statement about how technology is ever increasing so that in years to come at future games, it would make sense then that athletes will continue to excel in their performance. I think that would be a really fine way to end this entire essay. So let's look at a very short concluding statement that summarizes all those points. So here we have the evolution of sports equipment has provided Olympic athletes with more opportunities to improve performance and set new records. Finish times are faster and competitions are more challenging, resulting in impressive demonstrations of athletic ability. Performances by the world's best athletes will likely continue to improve as technology is developed further. So there we have it. If we look back right now at the introductory paragraph up top, this is that thesis statement. This is how we finish that first paragraph, and it answers the question with focus. So I just want to point out how our ideas from that first paragraph come back again in summary form in the second or in the concluding paragraph below here. So you can see those two phrases that I've underlined in orange. They mean the exact same thing. The idea is the same, but we've paraphrased the ideas. So in the introduction, we said technological advancements to sporting equipment. In the conclusion, we said the evolution of sports equipment. So again, on the CAEL test, we're looking at ways to vary our own language. We can paraphrase our own ideas too. We don't want to use the same words over and over again in order to help maximize our score for the vocabulary. That will impress the raters the most. We also mentioned about the Olympic athletes in the introduction because that's the focus of this whole question anyway. So we did cite Olympic athletes again in the conclusion. I recognize that these words are the same, but we are talking about Olympic athletes. And keep in mind, your introduction in the essay is way up top, the conclusions right down here at the bottom. So it's not going to sound repetitive with just those few words. I think we're fine there. I don't feel the need to change those or paraphrase them too much. I think in order to really capture the two main points we talked about, what we did here is we looked at a broad approach first. So this whole essay talked about how this new equipment allows athletes to improve performance and set new records. That's sort of the general gist of what we were talking about. And we finish our conclusion with the specifics. So remember, in our introduction, we identified those two key ways in which athletes are demonstrating better performances. They speak about faster results and demonstrating more competitive performances. So in our conclusion, you can see again how those ideas are there, just reworded. So instead of saying achieve faster results, in the conclusion, we said finish times are faster. Up top, we said demonstrate more competitive performances. In the conclusion, we said competitions are more challenging, resulting in impressive demonstrations of athletic ability. So again, our introduction and our conclusion match. We've summarized the main points. We've not left anything out. We've varied our language appropriately and used an academic tone. So all of that checks out. The last thing that we did decide to add here, this final sentence in the orange brackets, this is that next step, that prediction about what could happen next as technology continues to advance. So it says here, performances by the world's best athletes will likely continue to improve as technology is developed further. It just makes it sound finished. And I think once the reader gets to that sentence, they'll also understand that we brought that essay to a natural conclusion. So when you put the entire thing together, it looks like this. You've got the 4 distinct paragraphs. So this is called the draft process. On your test, you're typing all of this right into the computer screen. All right, hopefully you've kept an eye on your time. Remember, on the CAEL test, you've got 35 minutes to write. I'm hoping you'll leave about 2 or 3 minutes if you can to quickly skim read it over and make sure that you're happy with the ideas and that the grammar and writing skills are all correct. Now, we're not going to take the time to proofread it today, but again, on the test you would. There might be the odd little grammar mistake here that maybe we didn't catch as we were writing the piece out. But this is your finished product. On your CAEL test, you have to achieve at least 250 words. This one's quite a bit longer. This one measured 471 words. So we've added an additional 200 words or so. So again, in 35 minutes, some people would have the ability to write that much, and that's great if you do. If you don't, though, that's also okay. In 35 minutes, you might just have to focus on fewer examples in the middle paragraphs. So remember, we used 3 examples for both middle paragraphs. If you're strapped for time, you might only want to go with 2 examples in each middle paragraph. So again, be flexible, look at your clock, and plan your time accordingly. As long as you've answered the question, you have provided specific details. On the real test, you will be using both the reading and listening sources. So as long as you've done that well, and you've offered up your conclusion to summarize, that's what the raters are looking for. Okay, so again, at least achieve 250 words, go over that if you have time, but finish in 35 minutes on the real test. That's how to completely maximize your score here in all areas. All right, so let's stop there for today. Essay writing can be very challenging, and I think that's more than enough information to reflect upon and to absorb. Hopefully, you've learned some tips and strategies here that will help you to organize your own essays. And I'm also hoping that you'll put these tips to good use as you practice to continue to develop your writing skills.